Hi, everybody. Welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today, a month ago, or a little over, maybe 6 weeks ago, I did a video of an initial reaction to the verdict in my most recent case. I testified in court yesterday. I am recording this on Saturday, the 26th of April, and on the 25th, yesterday, I testified in a court case in Payson, Arizona versus John Elliott. And there are links in the description to some news stories on it. And last night fairly late, we got a verdict on that. And so I thought I would do the same and react and tell you what I learned here.
Download the ASP Unlimited app for all the content you love from Active Self-Protection and more with no interference from YouTube. No ads, no age gates, exclusive videos, seminars, classes, and more on iOS, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. Hit the link in the description or download ASP Unlimited from your app store today.
So this one is the exact opposite of the last one. Thank God. I'm so grateful that Mr. Elliott was acquitted of both charges that he faced in his particular trial. And I'm so grateful for that. And I testified just before he did. That's very typical for the expert to testify right before the defendant in a use of force case, in a self-defense case. And thankfully, the jury came back relatively quickly. I think my testimony ended around 11 a.m. I was done, something like that. I was first yesterday, and then my testimony ended at 11 a.m. I know that that John took the stand right after that. It's the first time I met him was at the trial, and I know he was still testifying in the afternoon about 2 p.m. So I think that they sent the jury off with jury instructions, I think about 3:30, and the jury came back around 7 p.m. with a not guilty verdict on both charges against him. He was charged with animal cruelty and illegal discharge of a firearm inside city limits. Basically, that's what we call Shannon's Law here. So both of those are felonies, and he could have been facing years in prison out of this, and thankfully he's not. I'm going to actually do multiple videos about this particular case because, if you have watched the reaction video to Cameron Leonard, my initial reaction to that went kind of stupid viral, 138,000 views or something, which for this channel is a crazy number of views. Like, that's a huge number for this particular channel, not for the big channel, but for this one. Will this one get the same number? I doubt it, because it's not as salacious. It's not me complaining and saying how bad things are. I'm super grateful. I slept like a baby last night. And I'm going to say, okay, so I'm still trying to recognize that I don't win cases. And so I do my best to educate. And then you never know what a jury's going to say. You just never know. And I knew that yesterday, man. I got done. I said I thought we had I thought I had a good beat on the jury. I thought they were tracking with what I said. It was a 9-person jury, so 8 jurors and an alternate. In this case, it's not like a murder case, so they don't have to have 12. 8 is a possibility too. And I thought I had 4 women and 5 men on the jury. Of those 5 men, 3 were older. One was kind of middle-aged. One was a little bit younger. The ladies all skewed towards a little bit, middle age and older. And I was hopeful that would help because the defendant, John Elliott, 75 years old. Okay. And he shot a dog is the way that happened. So he's out walking his dog. In that case, again, you can go read the news stories that I've linked in the description, but I've got a caution about those, and that's on this one. I'm going to do multiple videos about this trial and about these charges, and but for this one, I want to give you a little bit of detail on what happened. So John is just out walking his dog. He's got a Belgian Malinois, but it's not a protective dog or anything like that. It's just a family pet, high drive family pet. 75-year-old man. About 3 weeks previously, he had had an encounter a couple of blocks down with a pit bull, basically like an American Staffordshire Terrier that had chased, and tried to run him down. He's, oh no, what do I do? Picks up a big rock because he sees this dog coming down the street at him, running hard at him. Oh no, I'm in trouble, and starts yelling and hollering. Well, thankfully that dog stopped a ways off. He didn't have to try to bash it in the head with a rock. Then he decides at that point, I'm carrying my pistol when I walk the dog because I'm not going to get chewed up and put in the hospital or killed by a dog. So he puts a little J frame in his right pocket. Well, then on the date in question, a lady who lives in this neighborhood where he was walking his dog, she has two dogs. One of them is hers, and one of them is owned by her son. And but she's kind of in custody. The dog, I think, lived with her, or at least she had control and custody of that dog. And she liked to take him out. This is Payson, Arizona, so it's up in the woods. And she liked to take him out to the forest and let him run, and let him just run off leash and go and run. Brings him home, drives him up, and she opened the car door to let him out and expected them to just go in the house. That's what they would normally do. But in this case, they didn't. They tore off around the backside of the car and ran at John and his dog, and barking and running at him hard. The first dog, Winnie, and the second dog, Maddie. Now, the second dog was the one that was owned by her son, and they had a little different version of events in some capacities. So I'm talking now not from what you'll read in the news story, but from what we saw in Discovery and in interviews that everybody did. But what we're seeing here is that the dog was running either at John or right past him to get to this common area, depending on whether or not you believe John or you believe Lori, who owned or was in charge of the dogs. So either right past him, like a foot by him, or at him, depending on whose perspective that you believe. And then at that point, John drew his pistol when they came around the back of the car. He was about 110 feet away. When he came at him first, he said, I yelled no, and that dog stopped, so I didn't shoot it. I came back to the other dog and yelled no. That dog didn't stop, so I shot it. Now, the bullet went high in the right shoulder of the dog, and he fired one shot, and that dog died immediately. Well, not quite immediately. That dog died within the next probably minute or so. It got a little ways past him. He basically, the shot broke as the dog was going past him. So right as it went past him, and then maybe 10 feet past him, it came to a stop, laid down, whined for a minute, poor pup, and died. Now, the challenge here, in my opinion, the real challenge is that the owner of that dog was a longtime Payson police officer. And he's no longer a Payson police officer. He now works for ASU as a police officer. I think at their Payson campus. And so he shot the wrong dog is the problem. Now, the sergeant who was in charge of the investigation of this, who showed up on scene, in later interviews with the defense, told the defense, they asked, did you know the owner of the dog? Kyle Bathke is his name. Yes. How do you know him? Would you consider him a friend? Well, no, I wouldn't consider him a friend. I'm more of like a father figure to him and like a mentor. I've mentored him for 10 years and I pinned his badge on him. And so I've mentored him as a cop for a decade. And so you knew the whole family here on a first name basis? Yes. And you didn't see that there was a conflict of interest here? And you leading this investigation? No, we're a small town. This is just how we do things. When there's a county sheriff available to take over an investigation, state patrol could take over an investigation, neighboring city PD could take over an investigation. There were plenty of opportunities here for somebody else to take over the investigation. Now, we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to show you in future videos my expert report, what we did to help to showcase the human performance factors in John's shooting, as well as there is, I'm going to do this one with Tim Forshee. There is a video of right after this incident, they arrested John. So a bunch of cops show up. I have badge cams, all that. Most of them are banal and meaningless, and nobody's interacting with the defendant, with John. Detective Keith puts him under arrest, says he's under arrest for shooting the dog. That by itself, wow, okay. Now in Arizona, you'll see this as well on the badge cams. When it's just cops huddled up in a circle talking, they will turn off the audio on their badge cam for conversation. And I hate that, frankly. When they're in the middle of an investigation, like, well, we don't want hearsay to be on camera, and we don't want everything that we say because we may need to, talk doing administrative stuff, and you don't want all that stuff on the record. yeah, but what the heck are you talking about back there? And you're in the middle of an investigation. I don't like it. Anyway, they do it whether I like it or not. Come back, arrest John, take him to the Payson Police Headquarters, read him his Miranda rights, and then Detective Keith, for the next 25 minutes, questions him and, quite frankly, runs him through a buzzsaw for 25 minutes. We're going to talk about that in a separate video. I'm going to have a whole separate video and show you the entire post-Miranda interview with Mr. Elliott, and it's going to be a great reminder of why you don't talk to the police. Very frankly, that's where that's going to be. So he was charged with 2 felonies. They did not offer him any pleas that were not felony level pleas with jail time attached, prison time. So he didn't take them. And his attorneys called me, and John hired me. We did an expert report with a demonstration in it of the time and the human performance factors involved. And thankfully, he was acquitted of all charges. And I'm so grateful for that because, frankly, you know, I'm involved in several cases right now, right? I'm working right now. After this one's off my docket, I have 4 cases that I'm working right now. And, you know, they almost all have some stink on them. That's why you hire an expert, right? You're explaining and educating because there's some kind of thing on there that makes it look not great. But in this case, every once in a while you get one. And this is one for me that's just, I literally looked over Discovery and I said to the defense attorney, Richard Brown's his name, and I was like, I don't understand why there's even charges here. This is just ridiculous. There's no way the prosecution can prove that what he did was not justified use of deadly force. And the defense attorney said, I agree with you. I don't think they can even remotely meet that standard. And yet here we are. And they won't give him a plea. They said, why? According to the defense attorney, the prosecutor said there's too much community pressure to offer a plea bargain, even though John's side said, hey, you know, we'll pay for the dog. We'll even plead to a misdemeanor and pay for the dog and reimburse the family, even though we feel like John didn't do anything wrong, just to make all this go away. Nope, no chance. We're going to trial. Okay, and there's that is, and so this one was just a super clear case of defensive use of deadly force. Just no stink on it. John was totally innocent. He didn't do anything to provoke or anything like that. He had never seen this dog before. He barely knew the person who is in charge of the dogs, Lori Bathke. He knew who she was because they lived in the same neighborhood, but didn't really know her at all. And so he's done nothing to put any stink on it. He was under just immediate threat of death or great bodily injury that was unavoidable, that he couldn't get away from. He fired 1 shot, it hit the dog, and that's the only shot that he fired. He didn't put anybody else at any risk, and so it's just clear as a bell. Thankfully, the jury saw that and acquitted him on both charges, and tonight, John can sleep without worrying about going to prison. Now, I do think, you know, again, I'm going to show you a couple things out of this trial that will frustrate you. I do think there's significant conflict of interest in Sergeant McInerney even taking this one. Like, why in the world did he investigate this? It's just an absolute appearance of bias, an absolute appearance of impropriety. Even if he is the most professional guy on earth and can put all that aside, which I don't think is the case, okay? I will tell you this. I know this from, again, this is Discovery material. It's not anything I've found in a news story. Is that he was forced by his boss, Sergeant McInerney was forced by his boss to write Lori Bathke a ticket for animals off leash and for animals out of control. And he was mad about that. He did write that ticket, and I have the badge cam of that. And he told her, go fight this in court because it won't fly, but I'm forced to write it by my boss. And then guess who the state's witness was in the case when it went to the court? Sergeant McInerney. And so then guess what he said? He said, I don't think these charges make any sense. And so the judge dismissed them. And so then it was a big thing. Well, those charges were dismissed, so she did nothing wrong. Well, no crap. When the actual state's witness is unwilling to do that, even though she did have dogs off leash, and even though they were loose in the neighborhood, and even though there was evidence from other neighbors that this happened regularly. So there's a conflict of interest here, like a very significant one that really frustrates me. And honestly, the post-Miranda interview You're going to see it here on the channel. It pisses me off. It makes me so mad. And it reminds me, don't talk to the cops after a defensive use of force. Invoke your rights, talk to your attorney so you don't get run through the buzzsaw, because thankfully, John did a good job. And he made a couple statements. You'll see it. He made a couple statements in there that if you take little sound bites, make it sound like he was just afraid for his dog. If you just take little sound bites. But when you listen to the whole thing and you listen to the whole 25-minute interview, he never says he wasn't afraid for himself. He just answers the question that's asked. Were you afraid for your dog? Yes. A little while later, were you afraid for your life? Yes. So, and he's just after a deadly force incident. Oh, I'm gonna tell you all about it. It's gonna be one that's coming. It makes me so mad. That interview pisses me off, and I'm gonna get real direct in that one. And the detective who did that interview, I'm real frustrated for it. Did that to a 75-year-old man. Anyways, I'm super glad that John is safe at home tonight and able to do his thing. I would encourage you, read the news stories in the description. You're not going to see anything about that. You're going to see, oh, he shot a beloved cop's beloved dog. And the police say that that dog was just, traipsing about the neighborhood innocently. And he maliciously shot that dog. When in reality, the dog was running at him and never stopped running at him until he shot it. It ran just by him as he shot it. Waited until the last second and did that. So a couple of lessons for you out of this. Number one, doubt anything you see written in the news. When you see a defensive use or a use of force or a shooting or something like that, the reporters probably don't know use of force, and they probably don't get both sides. Now, I don't know if that reporter tried to get a statement from the defense. It doesn't say that they did. They didn't. There's nothing in the story that says we reached out to defense counsel and they had nothing to say, or they declined to comment. There's nothing like that. Well, just police said this. Well, that's a very one-sided take on events, and it didn't tell the story of what happened at all. Another interesting thing that happened yesterday, the acquittal. I'm recording this again, the 26th, happened yesterday. There's no stories in the news. I Googled today. I just Googled before I hit the record button. There are no stories of his acquittal. So either the reporter, now it's a small town, but the reporter took the day off or is on vacation, or, well, our work here is done and the acquittal isn't going to get any kind of clicks, and so we're not going to say anything about it. Or it's not important to us anymore because it doesn't have the salaciousness of charges for shooting a beloved police officer's dog. I think a third one here, all right? The prosecutor made a lot of hay, and I'm going to have a whole video on my testimony and where it is. I'm trying to they actually broadcast the trial live on YouTube, but they don't have, the curated videos up anywhere that I can find. So I'm going to try to get it if they save it. Hopefully they do. And if I can get the whole trial, it'll be in the ASP Unlimited app. But the prosecutor made a lot of hay. Well, why didn't he try to do something else? Why didn't he try to de-escalate? Why didn't he try to take cover? Why didn't he try to use some other force? We didn't have time for any of that. And none of that was available to him. And we made a lot about that. I think the prosecutor made a mistake in asking me those questions, quite frankly. Because I was like, look, I wish that John had an Iron Man suit. So he could have just hit his Iron Man suit and Jarvis puts him in the suit and then he's completely oblivious to the dog. I wish he did, but he didn't have an Iron Man suit. So if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So that's just not a feasible thing. And John had a J-frame in his pocket, his dog on his side, who's not a protective dog, and that's it. So here's a reminder from me to you. If John had an OC spray on him, he probably doesn't get any charges whatsoever because he zips up the nose of that dog as it gets within 10, 15 feet of him. And that takes all the starch out of that dog. He doesn't shoot the dog, and that dog, and then that dog isn't dead. Maybe he's got an angry neighbor. Maybe at most he's got a misdemeanor for I don't even know what you would charge a misdemeanor in that case for, but probably nothing, a giant nothing burger because the dog isn't injured. At the most, the dog is annoyed for an hour about the OC spray, but it probably stops the threat. Again, I've used OC spray many times. I'm not blaming John for not having one. He wasn't a trained guy. He's not like he's a Green Beret, Navy SEAL. He's not highly trained in self-defense. He's not a hobbyist. He doesn't have any of that stuff. It's just a 75-year-old man out for a walk with his dog. Just an average, normal, typical human, okay? And so I'm not blaming him for that, but I think a lesson for all of us is this is why when I'm out for walks in the neighborhood or jogs or rucks, I carry an OC spray on me all the time for this reason, because if you get to shoot a dog, your day is ruined, okay? You're definitely getting to interview with the cops. You're definitely looking at big problems, and you might end up facing felony charges if they disagree with you with how it went. And it could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. Whereas you OC spray a dog and probably none of that happens. And 90% probability that it does significant stuff to change the dog's behavior. So I wish he did. He didn't, and I'm not blaming him for that. But a lesson for all of us, man, a less lethal tool, even and especially if you're carrying a firearm, to give me something between a harsh word and a gun might have saved John an awful lot of time. We'll talk a little bit. I'm gonna talk about what this kind of stuff costs too on a separate video. But for today, my initial reaction, thank God that John is safe at home, and I'm super glad that I was able to help him. Thank goodness that the jury saw through the prosecution's bullcrap, and thank God that he is able to get this past him and just move on with his life. And I'm very grateful to have been able to help. Again, I didn't win the case. The facts, the merits, I think, were there. One was, I think, pure as the wind-driven snow, and I'm mad that the prosecution even brought a case here, quite frankly. But I'm super grateful on this one, and definitely slept well last night. So, got some more coming up. Let's see, I've got a case. Next one I have, I think, is in June. Is the second week of June is the next trial that I have coming. And then after that, we have one that's scheduled in July right now, but I don't think it's going to happen. And the other two, I don't have trial dates for. But we got more coming on this case. I'll talk to you more about it in the end. Again, do you carry an OC spray when you're walking? Let me know in the comments, would you?